I trusted her with my entire future. 3 years of my life, 3 years of believing we were building something real together. But the moment I overheard her conversation with her sister, laughing about how she was going to milk me dry after marriage, everything shattered. My name is John, and this is the story of how I discovered the woman I loved was planning to destroy me. But here's the twist. I didn't just walk away. What I did next changed both our lives forever. Stay with me, because this gets intense.
Before we dive in, let me paint you a picture of who I was 3 years ago. I'm 28 now, a software developer who'd worked incredibly hard to build a stable career. I wasn't born into wealth, but my family did well for themselves. My parents taught me the value of hard work, integrity, and treating people with respect. They built a comfortable life through decades of dedication, and I was following in their footsteps. I had a nice car, not flashy, but reliable. I lived in a decent apartment in a good neighborhood. I was saving money, investing wisely, thinking about the future. I wasn't trying to show off or impress anyone. I just wanted to build something meaningful with someone special. And then I met Luna. She was 25, beautiful, charming, and full of life. When we first started dating, she seemed perfect. She laughed at my jokes, shared my interests, and made me feel like I was the most important person in her world. Those first few months felt like a dream. I thought I'd found my person, that once-in-a-lifetime connection everyone talks about. Our relationship moved fast, but it felt right. Within 6 months, we were practically inseparable. Luna would come over to my place almost every night. We'd cook together, watch movies, talk about our dreams for hours. She told me she wanted a simple life filled with love and laughter. She said material things didn't matter as long as we had each other. I believed every word. I introduced her to my parents after about 8 months. They welcomed her with open arms, the way they always did with people I cared about. My mom loved her energy, and my dad appreciated how she seemed interested in my work. We'd go to my family home for Sunday dinners, and Luna would compliment everything. The house, the garden, the furniture, the neighborhood. She seemed genuinely impressed by the life my parents had built. Looking back now, I can see the signs I missed. The way her eyes lingered a little too long on expensive things. The way she'd mention the size of the house or ask subtle questions about property values. But back then, I thought she was just making conversation, trying to connect with my family. I was blind, completely and utterly blind. By the end of our first year together, I was already thinking about marriage. She seemed like everything I wanted in a partner. We had moved in together by then, and life felt stable, comfortable, happy. Or at least, that's what I told myself. But then, around the 3-year mark, things started to shift. At first, the changes were subtle. Luna started paying more attention to luxury brands. She'd scroll through Instagram, showing me designer handbags and saying things like, "Isn't this gorgeous? Maybe one day." I'd laugh it off, thinking she was just window shopping like everyone does. Then the comments became more frequent, more pointed. She started comparing our lifestyle to her friends' relationships. Jessica's boyfriend just brought her a Mercedes for her birthday. Or Sarah's getting that Chanel bag she wanted. Her fiancé really knows how to treat her right. I tried to brush it off. I'd remind her that we were building something together, that material things weren't what mattered. She'd agree, but I could see the disappointment in her eyes. It was like I was failing some test I didn't even know I was taking. The requests started small. A more expensive restaurant here. A weekend trip to a luxury resort there. I didn't mind treating her, but it felt like the bar kept rising. Nothing was ever quite enough anymore. The thoughtful gestures I used to make, like cooking her favorite meal or planning a picnic under the stars, those didn't seem to matter as much anymore. What really concerned me was her reaction when I brought up something important, something that, to me, was just common sense for any couple planning a future together, a prenuptial agreement. I'll never forget the day I mentioned it.
We were sitting on the couch, talking about our future, and I casually brought up the idea of a prenup. I wasn't trying to be offensive or suggest I didn't trust her. I just thought it was a smart, practical thing that protected both of us. The moment the word left my mouth, her entire demeanor changed. Her face went cold. Her body stiffened. She looked at me like I just insulted everything we'd built together. "A prenup?" she repeated, her voice sharp. "You want me to sign a prenup?" I tried to explain. I told her it was standard practice, especially in my field where I had significant assets and investments. I explained that it protected both parties, that it wasn't about lacking trust, but about being responsible adults planning for every scenario. She wasn't having it. "If you loved me, you wouldn't ask me to sign something like that," she said, her eyes filling with tears. "Do you think I'm with you for your money? Is that what you really think of me?" I felt terrible. She made me feel like I was the bad guy for even suggesting it. She went on about how marriage was about complete trust, about becoming one unit, about sharing everything without barriers or contracts or legal documents getting in the way. I backed down. I told her we didn't have to talk about it right then, that we could revisit the conversation later. But she wouldn't let it go. For weeks afterward, she'd make passive-aggressive comments about it. "I guess I'm just not good enough for you without a contract, huh?" Or, "I thought we were partners, but apparently you need legal protection from me." It wore me down. I started to question whether I was being unreasonable. Maybe I was being too cautious, too cynical. Maybe she was right, and I just needed to trust her completely. But deep down, something felt off. Why was she so vehemently opposed to something that would protect both of us? What was she afraid of? I didn't have an answer then, but I was about to find out. It was a Tuesday evening. I remember because I'd taken the day off to work from home, finishing up a major project that had been consuming all my time. Luna didn't know I was home. She thought I was at the office, like I usually was on Tuesdays. I was in my home office, with the door mostly closed, headphones on, deep in code, when I heard the front door open. Luna was home early, and she wasn't alone. I heard her sister's voice. They were in the living room, which shared a wall with my office. I took off my headphones, about to go out and say hello, when I heard something that made me freeze. Luna's sister was asking her about wedding plans. "So, have you set a date yet?" her sister asked. "Not yet," Luna replied. "He's being difficult about the prenup thing. Can you believe he actually asked me to sign one?" They both laughed. But it wasn't a nervous laugh or an uncomfortable one. It was calculating, cold. "You can't sign that," her sister said firmly. "If you sign a prenup, you won't get anything if things go south. You know that, right?" "Obviously," Luna said. "That's why I'm making sure it doesn't happen. I've been playing the hurt card, making him feel guilty for even suggesting it. He's backing down." My heart started pounding. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. But it got worse. So much worse. Her sister continued. "Smart. Once you're married without a prenup, you're set. Even if it only lasts a few years, you'll get half of everything. His savings, his investments, part of his family's estate, everything." Luna laughed again. "Exactly. Why do you think I've stuck around this long? He's boring as hell, but he's got money. His family's loaded. That house they live in is worth millions. Once I'm legally his wife, I'm entitled to all of it." The words hit me like a physical blow. I felt sick, dizzy, like the floor had disappeared beneath me. Her sister asked, "What about after? You're really gonna divorce him?" "Maybe, maybe not," Luna said casually. "Depends on how much control I can get. If I can get him to put my name on properties and accounts, I might stick around. If not, I'll milk him for alimony and take my share. Either way, I win." They were laughing, planning, strategizing about how to financially destroy me like it was just another Tuesday conversation. I sat there in my office, completely frozen, trying to process what I'd just heard. The woman I'd loved for 3 years, The woman I'd imagined building a life with had been using me the entire time. Every smile, every kiss, every "I love you" had been part of an elaborate con. I felt like an idiot. How had I not seen this? How had I been so blind? But more than feeling stupid, I felt rage. Pure, white-hot anger at being manipulated, at being treated like nothing more than a paycheck, at having 3 years of my life wasted on someone who saw me as a mark, not a partner. I sat there for what felt like hours, but was probably only 20 minutes, trying to decide what to do. Part of me wanted to storm out there and confront them immediately. But another part of me, the logical part that had served me well in my career, told me to be smart about this. I needed evidence. I needed proof. So I did something I'm not entirely proud of, but I don't regret it either. I opened my phone and started recording. I pressed the voice memo app and left my phone on my desk, door cracked open just enough to catch their conversation. They talked for another 30 minutes. And in that time, they laid out the entire plan in detail. How Luna had specifically targeted successful men in their late 20s. How she'd learned to play the role of the perfect girlfriend. How she'd studied my family to figure out exactly how much we were worth. How she'd been careful not to show her true colors too early, because she knew guys like me would run at the first sign of gold digging. She even talked about past relationships where she'd done similar things. She'd been engaged twice before me. Twice! And both times, she'd broken things off at the last minute after receiving expensive gifts and money from her fiancés. She bragged about how she'd gotten one ex to pay off her student loans by convincing him it was an investment in their future together. I felt physically ill listening to it all. But I kept recording. Every word, every laugh, every detail of their sick plan.
When they finally left, Luna saying she needed to meet me at my office for dinner, I had nearly 40 minutes of recorded conversation. Clear audio of everything they'd said. I sat there in the silence, trying to figure out my next move. I could have just broken up with her, told her I knew, played the recording, and kicked her out. That would have been the simple solution, the clean break. But something in me wanted more than that. She'd spent 3 years manipulating me, lying to me, using me. She'd wasted my time, my emotions, my trust. And according to what I'd heard, I wasn't even her first victim. Who knows how many other men she'd scammed? If I just broke up with her, she'd move on to the next target. She'd do the same thing to someone else. And frankly, after the way she'd planned to destroy me financially and emotionally, I wanted her to face consequences. So I made a decision. I would refuse to marry her, but I'd do it in a way that exposed exactly who she was. First things first, I needed to secure my assets. I called my lawyer that evening and explained the situation. I played him the recording. He was shocked, but immediately understood the gravity of the situation. He advised me on steps to protect myself legally and financially. We discussed how to document everything, how to ensure my family's assets were protected, and what to do if she tried to claim we had a common law marriage, which, thankfully, wasn't applicable in our state given our circumstances. Next, I needed to end things. But I wanted to do it the right way. I didn't want to just ghost her or kick her out without explanation. I wanted her to know that I knew that her plan had failed, that she had underestimated me. I arranged for her to come home one evening when I knew she'd be expecting a normal dinner date. I'd ordered her favorite takeout, set the table, even put out candles. From her perspective, it probably looked like I was planning something romantic. When she walked in, she was all smiles, playing the part of the loving girlfriend to perfection. "This looks amazing, baby," she said, kissing my cheek. "What's the occasion?" "We need to talk," I said calmly. Her smile faltered slightly.
Okay, that sounds serious. Is everything all right? I gestured for her to sit down. She did, looking confused and slightly worried. I pulled out my phone and set it on the table between us. I want you to listen to something, I said. I pressed play. Her own voice filled the room. The conversation with her sister. Every damning word. I watched as the color drained from her face. Her eyes went wide. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. She sat there, frozen, as her own words condemned her. "You were home?" she finally whispered when the recording ended. "I was home," I confirmed. "I heard everything, Luna, every single word." She immediately switched tactics. The tears started flowing. She reached for my hand, but I pulled away. "John, please, it's not what it sounds like," she said desperately. I was venting to my sister. I didn't mean any of it. You know how sisters talk. We exaggerate things. Stop," I said firmly. "I'm not doing this. I'm not listening to more lies." She kept trying. She cycled through every manipulation tactic in the book. She cried harder, saying I was the love of her life and she didn't know why she'd said those things. She got angry, accusing me of spying on her and violating her privacy. She tried guilt, reminding me of all the good times we'd shared. She even tried seduction, suggesting we go to the bedroom and talk about this properly. None of it worked. "This relationship is over," I told her. "I want you out of my apartment. You have until the end of the week to get your things and find somewhere else to live." "John, please, you can't do this," she begged. "I have nowhere to go. I gave up everything for this relationship." That almost made me laugh. Gave up everything. She'd been planning to take everything from me. "That's not my problem anymore," I said. "You have a sister who seems happy to help you scheme. I'm sure she'll let you crash on her couch." "You're making a huge mistake," she said, her tone shifting from pleading to threatening. "You're going to regret this." "The only mistake I made was wasting 3 years on you," I replied. She stood up, grabbed her purse, and headed for the door. But before she left, she turned back to me with a look of pure venom. "You think you're so smart, don't you? You have no idea what I can do to you. You're gonna pay for this." And then she was gone. I sat there in the silence of my apartment, feeling a strange mix of relief and sadness. Relief that it was over, that I'd escaped before she could do real damage. But sadness too, because despite everything, I had loved her. Or at least I'd loved who I thought she was. But I wasn't naive enough to think this was over. I knew Luna well enough to know she wouldn't just accept defeat and move on quietly. She was going to retaliate. I just didn't know how devastating her retaliation would be. It started the very next day. I woke up to dozens of notifications on my phone, messages, tags, comments. My social media was blowing up. Confused, I opened Instagram first. Luna had posted a long, emotional message, complete with crying selfies and carefully crafted words designed to paint herself as the victim and me as the villain. The post read, "I'm heartbroken and devastated. After 3 years of loving someone with all my heart, I've been abandoned in the cruelest way possible. John made me promises, told me we were building a future together, and then threw me away like I was nothing. He demanded I sign away my rights in a prenup that would leave me with absolutely nothing, even though I've supported him through everything. When I asked for basic respect and equality in our relationship, he called me a gold digger and kicked me out of what had become our home. I sacrificed my career opportunities, my friendships, my time, and my love for someone who never really valued me. I'm sharing this because I don't want other women to go through what I'm going through. Be careful who you trust with your heart. Some people are only capable of loving themselves." I couldn't believe what I was reading. Every single sentence was a lie or a manipulation of the truth. But to anyone who didn't know the full story, it would sound completely believable.
She'd positioned herself as the victim of a cold, heartless man who'd used her and discarded her. And people were believing it. The comments were brutal. Friends, acquaintances, even some of my coworkers were commenting with messages of support for her and condemnation for me. "You deserve so much better, Luna. I can't believe he did this to you. John always seemed like such a nice guy, but I guess you never really know someone. What a jerk. Using a prenup to control you is financial abuse." My own social media started getting flooded with angry messages. People I'd known for years were sending me hate mail, calling me every name in the book, telling me I should be ashamed of myself. Luna wasn't done there. She shared her post everywhere: Facebook, Twitter, TikTok. She tagged mutual friends, my colleagues, even my family members. She was on a mission to completely destroy my reputation. She posted follow-up stories and videos, crying on camera about how heartbroken she was, how she trusted me completely, how she couldn't believe someone could be so cruel.
Within 48 hours, the story had spread like wildfire. Luna had always been popular on social media, and now she was using that platform to wage war against me. But it got worse. She started making more serious allegations. In one post, she implied that I had been emotionally abusive throughout our relationship. She claimed I'd isolated her from her friends, controlled her finances, and manipulated her into staying with me. None of it was true. Not a single word. I tried defending myself in the comments, trying to set the record straight, but it only made things worse. People accused me of victim blaming and harassing her. "Let her heal in peace," they said. "Stop attacking her online." I couldn't win. Anything I said was twisted and used against me. My boss called me into his office. The HR department had received complaints about me from employees who'd seen Luna's posts. They wanted to know if there was any truth to her allegations of abusive behavior. I had to sit through a humiliating meeting where I was essentially treated like a criminal, having to defend myself against completely fabricated accusations. My parents were getting harassed online too. Luna had implied that they'd looked down on her because she came from a less wealthy background, that they'd pressured me to leave her. People were sending my mother cruel messages, calling her classist and elitist. My mom called me in tears. "John, what's happening? Why is she saying these things?" I tried to explain, but how do you sum up this kind of betrayal in a phone call? How do you tell your parents that you'd been dating someone for 3 years who'd been planning to financially destroy your entire family? I felt trapped, helpless. Luna had effectively weaponized social media against me, and there was nothing I could do to stop it. Or so I thought. I spent a week watching my reputation crumble. A week of being treated like a pariah by people I'd known for years. A week of watching Luna play the victim while I was cast as the villain. I tried taking the high road. I tried staying silent, hoping it would blow over. My lawyer advised me not to engage, saying that responding publicly could open me up to defamation lawsuits if I wasn't careful. But watching her get away with it, watching her receive sympathy and support for lies while I suffered, it was eating me alive. And then I thought about what my lawyer had said when I first played him the recording. "This is clear evidence of intent to commit fraud. If you wanted to, you could pursue legal action." But legal action would take months, maybe years. It would be expensive and draining. And even if I won, would it really change anything? Would people who'd already made up their minds about me suddenly believe the truth? No. If I wanted to fix this, I needed to fight fire with fire. I needed to expose Luna for who she really was, in the same public forum where she'd tried to destroy me. I agonized over the decision. Part of me didn't want to stoop to her level. Part of me didn't want to put my private business out there for the world to judge. But the recording wasn't private business. It was evidence of a crime she'd intended to commit against me.
It was proof that everything she'd said about me was a lie. I made my decision. I was going to expose her, but I was going to do it carefully, factually, and with irrefutable evidence. I crafted my post carefully. No emotional language, no name-calling, just facts. I wrote, "I've stayed silent while false accusations have been made against me, hoping that the truth would eventually speak for itself. But I realize now that silence allows lies to flourish. So here is the truth, with evidence to support it. A week ago, I ended my relationship with Luna after discovering that she had been planning to marry me solely for financial gain. I have a recording of her discussing with her sister how she intended to avoid signing a prenup, marry me, and then either divorce me to take half my assets or stay married while gaining control of my family's wealth. I'm sharing this not to hurt her, but to defend myself against serious false accusations and to prevent her from doing this to someone else. Below is the recording, with her voice clearly identifiable, discussing her plans in detail." And then I posted the recording, all 40 minutes of it. I didn't edit it, I didn't take anything out of context. I let her own words speak for themselves. Within an hour, the post had hundreds of shares and comments. Within 3 hours, it had gone viral. People who'd been condemning me days earlier were now apologizing. The comments section was flooded with messages of support, shock, and outrage at Luna's behavior. "Oh my God, I can't believe I defended her. This is insane. She literally admitted to planning to defraud him. I owe you an apology, John. I'm sorry for judging you without knowing the full story. This is one of the most manipulative things I've ever heard. She's a sociopath." The recording was everything. It was undeniable proof of exactly what she'd intended to do. No one could claim I was lying or exaggerating. They could hear it for themselves, in her own voice, with her own words. Luna's supporters tried to defend her at first. They claimed the recording was taken out of context or that I'd edited it somehow. But the audio was time-stamped and continuous. There was no way to deny what was on it. Some people tried to argue that I'd violated her privacy by recording without her consent. But in my state, only one party needs to consent to a recording for it to be legal. And more importantly, recording someone discussing plans to commit fraud isn't a violation of privacy. It's evidence of a crime. The backlash against Luna was swift and severe. All her previous posts were flooded with new comments. People who'd supported her were now calling her out for her lies and manipulation. Some were sharing her posts with commentary about how she'd fooled everyone. She tried to defend herself. She posted a tearful video claiming the recording was fake, that I'd hired someone to impersonate her voice. But that claim fell apart quickly when multiple mutual friends confirmed it was definitely her voice, and audio forensic experts who analyzed it online confirmed it hadn't been edited or manipulated. She deleted the video and tried a different approach. She claimed that she'd been joking with her sister, that I'd taken their conversation seriously when it was just girls talking nonsense. But no one was buying it. The recording was too detailed, too specific, too calculated to be dismissed as a joke. Then she tried claiming I'd abused her so badly that she'd said those things as a coping mechanism, that she was trauma-bonded to me and didn't know what she was saying. But that narrative contradicted her earlier posts where she'd claimed I'd been controlling and cruel. If I was so terrible, why had she been planning to stay married to me to access my money? Nothing she said could undo the damage of her own recorded words. The consequences started piling up. Her employer, a marketing firm that valued reputation and ethics, let her go. They released a statement saying that an employee who demonstrated such calculated deception and manipulation in their personal life couldn't be trusted to represent their brand. Friends started distancing themselves from her publicly.
Mutual acquaintances who'd supported her initially were now posting apologies to me and removing their supportive comments from her original posts. Her social media following dropped dramatically. She lost thousands of followers in a matter of days. The accounts that remained were mostly there to leave critical comments. She was essentially canceled. Everything she'd tried to do to me had boomeranged back onto her with 10 times the force.
Meanwhile, my life started returning to normal. Better than normal, actually. People were reaching out to apologize for believing Luna's lies. Coworkers who'd been cold to me were suddenly friendly again. My boss called me into his office, not to reprimand me, but to apologize for putting me through that HR meeting without knowing the full story. My parents were relieved. My mom cried happy tears when I called to tell her it was over, that everyone now knew the truth. But the most surprising thing was the support I received from complete strangers. My post had gone so viral that people I'd never met were sending messages of support. Other men shared stories of similar experiences with partners who'd tried to use them financially. Women reached out to say they were disgusted by Luna's behavior and thanked me for exposing it. A few people even warned me about other women Luna had apparently scammed in the past, confirming my suspicion that I wasn't her first target. I also received messages from Luna's ex-fiancés. 2 different men reached out privately to thank me for exposing her. They shared their own stories of how she'd manipulated them, gotten them to pay off debts or buy expensive gifts, and then suddenly ended things. They'd suspected she'd been using them but had no proof. Hearing the recording validated everything they'd experienced. It was bittersweet. I was glad the truth was out, glad my reputation was restored, but I couldn't help feeling sad about the whole situation. Sad that I'd wasted 3 years. Sad that someone I'd loved had never really loved me back. Sad that this was how things had ended. But I also felt something else. Relief. Pure, overwhelming relief that I'd discovered the truth before marrying her, before she could legally get her hands on my assets, before she could do the damage she'd planned. Looking back now, several months after everything happened, I've learned some valuable lessons. First, trust your instincts. Deep down, I knew something was off when she refused to even discuss a prenup. I knew her sudden obsession with luxury and wealth was concerning, but I ignored those red flags because I wanted to believe in our relationship. I wanted to believe she was who she pretended to be. Second, protect yourself legally. I'm grateful I never married her without a prenup. If I had, she would have succeeded in her plan. The recording would have been evidence of her intentions, but disentangling our finances and assets would have been a nightmare. I'd probably still be in court fighting over it. Third, and this is important, document everything. If I hadn't recorded that conversation, it would have been her word against mine. People might have still believed her story. The recording was the difference between being believed and being destroyed. Fourth, don't stay silent in the face of false accusations. I tried taking the high road at first, and it nearly ruined my life. Sometimes you have to defend yourself, even if it means getting your hands dirty. And finally, I learned that some people are genuinely manipulative. Not misunderstood, not troubled, not crying out for help, just manipulative. Luna wasn't a victim of circumstance or trauma. She was a calculating person who'd made a series of conscious choices to use and deceive people for financial gain. That's a hard truth to accept, especially when you've loved someone, but it's important to recognize that not everyone has good intentions, and not everyone deserves your trust or compassion. So where am I now? I'm still working as a software developer, still living in the same apartment. My career wasn't damaged by the scandal, thankfully. If anything, some of my colleagues respect me more for how I handled the situation. I'm single, and I'm okay with that. After everything that happened with Luna, I'm not in any hurry to jump into another relationship. I'm focusing on myself, my career, my friendships, my family. I'm rediscovering what makes me happy outside of a romantic relationship. Have I dated since? A little, casually. But I'll admit, I'm more cautious now, more aware of red flags, more willing to ask tough questions early on. And yes, any future serious relationship will include a prenup discussion, regardless of how uncomfortable it might be. As for Luna, I have no idea where she is or what she's doing. After the fallout, she deleted all her social media accounts. I heard through mutual friends that she moved to a different city, trying to start fresh somewhere people didn't know her story. Part of me feels bad about that. Not because I regret exposing her, I absolutely don't, but because I'm not a person who enjoys seeing others suffer, even when they've hurt me. But the bigger part of me remembers that recording. I remember her laughing with her sister about ruining my life. I remember her calculating exactly how much she could take from me. I remember her threatening me when I ended things. And I remember all the other men she'd done this to before me, and all the men she might have done it to in the future if I hadn't spoken up. So no, I don't regret what I did. Not one bit. If you're listening to this and you see yourself in my story, if you're in a relationship where something feels off, where your partner seems more interested in your assets than in you, where they refuse to even discuss protecting both parties in a marriage, please listen to your instincts. A prenup isn't about lack of trust. It's about being realistic and protecting both people in a relationship. Anyone who truly loves you will understand that. Anyone who refuses to even discuss it, who makes you feel guilty for suggesting it, who claims it means you don't really love them, that's a red flag. A huge, waving, impossible-to-ignore red flag. Also, pay attention to behavior changes. Luna was perfect for the first year or two. The obsession with luxury and wealth didn't really surface until later. People who are manipulating you will be on their best behavior initially. They'll tell you everything you want to hear, but over time, their true character shows through. Don't ignore those moments. Don't make excuses for them. Don't convince yourself you're being paranoid or untrusting. If something feels wrong, investigate it. And if you do discover you're being used or manipulated, don't stay silent. Defend yourself. Tell your truth. Expose the lies. Yes, it's uncomfortable. Yes, it feels like you're stooping to their level. But sometimes standing up for yourself requires getting into the mud. Just make sure you have evidence. Don't make accusations you can't prove. Don't let emotion override facts. Build your case, document everything, and then tell your story with receipts. The whole experience with Luna changed me. I'm more cynical now, more guarded, but I'm also wiser, stronger, more aware of my own worth, and more willing to protect it. I don't hate her. Honestly, I just feel nothing. She's become a cautionary tale in my life, a reminder of what can happen when you ignore red flags, when you trust someone more than they deserve. Would I do anything differently? Maybe I would have asked harder questions earlier. Maybe I would have insisted on the prenup conversation sooner. Maybe I would have paid more attention to how she reacted when I talked about money and assets. But honestly, I think everything happened the way it needed to. If I'd discovered her intentions any later, if we'd already been married, the damage would have been catastrophic. In a way, overhearing that conversation was the best thing that could have happened to me. To everyone who supported me through this, who apologized for initially believing Luna's lies, who shared their own similar stories, thank you. Your support meant more than you know. To anyone going through something similar right now, stay strong. The truth always comes out eventually. Protect yourself, document everything, and don't be afraid to stand up for yourself when someone tries to destroy your reputation with lies. And to Luna, if you're somehow listening to this, I hope you've learned something from this experience. I hope you've realized that using people has consequences. I hope you've chosen to become a better person. But honestly, whether you have or haven't, that's no longer my concern.
You're no longer my problem. This story isn't about revenge. It's about justice. It's about protecting yourself from people who see you as nothing more than a paycheck. It's about not letting manipulative people win. I'm John, I'm 28 years old, and I'm finally free. Free from someone who never really loved me. Free from a relationship built on lies. Free to find someone who will value me for who I am, not what I have. And you know what? That freedom feels pretty damn good.
If this story resonated with you, if you've experienced something similar, or if you just want to share your thoughts, drop a comment below. I'd love to hear your perspective. And remember, trust is earned, not given. Protect your heart, but also protect your future. There's nothing wrong with being smart about relationships, even when you're in love. Thanks for listening to my story. Take care of yourselves out there, and remember, you deserve someone who loves you for you, not for what they can take from you. This is John, signing off.